evening to everybody onto this particular call, and a very good morning to you, Andy. Andy, it is an absolute honor and a privilege to have you on this call today. And I've got to give you a little bit of an introduction because we've kept most of this back from our agents over the last couple of weeks. So let me give all of our agents a little bit of an insight to the gentleman, Andy Coleman. Now, I'm going to be reading this straight from the script. So currently, he is the number 2 agent out of 90,000 agents in EXP. So yes, you heard me correctly, the number 2 agent. If we're looking at his stats, in 2022, he completed 250 deals. Now that is absolutely phenomenal. But let me take this even further. And this is really where I want all of you to actually just sit down and just take this in. In the last 4 years, he's netted $1.6 million. Now, we take our currency exchange rate, multiply that by 20. So we're talking about 32 million Rand in the last 4 years in net commission. That takes your mind to another level. Closed 700 plus deals in the last 4 years. He is a 3 times icon agent for EXP. And this is an absolute, and it goes on. He's also a YouTube social media influencer, an Instagram social media influencer. Andy, I've just got to ask you this one question. You've obviously been in real estate for about 30 years to come up with these particular numbers. Am I right?
No, no, I have not been in real estate 30 years. I'm only 36 years old. No, I just started doing real estate it's about 3.5 years, maybe we're coming up right around 4 years, I suppose, that I was in real estate. So no, I was literally brand new career. I didn't know anything about real estate whatsoever. So hey guys, by the way, yeah, my name is Andy Coleman. Obviously I'm with EXP. He just introduced me phenomenally. So I'm not going to go through all of that because all of that is accurate and correct. But yeah, I am basically still a relatively new agent. So it's just, listen guys, it's possible to do a lot of volume and a lot of deals in a very short amount of time. You do not have to be doing this for 30 plus years to do these kind of transactions. It's funny. We just held a holiday party for South Florida. We had about 400 agents show up, which was awesome. And I actually met the number 1 agent there. He's actually in South Florida as well, which was pretty cool. And he has been doing this for almost 30 years. So for me to have risen to the top so fast, I think that's what really separates me from all the other agents that are at the top right now. I did it so incredibly quick. So I think that's what, you guys kind of want to hear today is how I did it so fast, right? Because anybody can get to the top over 30 years, but can you do it in a few years? I think that's the question.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to just reiterate that. He didn't say a lot of years, 3 to 4 years. That's what I really want you to take in. And that was one of the reasons why I reached out to Andy specifically, because I could have gone to agents that have been in the industry for 20, 30 years. And basically they would have told their story. They've got their sphere of influence. They've built their database. They've got their clientele. But here we've got Andy who's done it in 3 to 4 years. And that's really and that's the reason why I brought him on the call. So I want to take you back one step, Andy. What got you into real estate? Why? What was that method? What got you in to make this particular transition? I mean, real estate of all things.
Yeah, so I was in a completely different industry before this. Actually, I'll tell you. So when I moved to Florida, it was about 5 years ago, 2 years before I got into real estate, give or take, maybe 6 years ago at this point. Who knows? So I didn't really have a direction, right? I was hanging out, I was partying. I had made some money in a different industry. I was always an entrepreneur. So that's what real estate is, by the way, guys. It's not like a 9-to-5 job. You're an entrepreneur. You're running your own business. So a lot of agents do not treat it that way, and that's why there's a 90% failure rate. So for me personally, I was like, all right, what am I going to do now? I got a little bit of cash. I wanted to come to Florida to invest in my buddy's company. He was actually running trips to Cuba, which completely flatlined because of the pandemic. So I didn't do that. I got lucky by saying no to that. And one of my other buddies was like, all right, why don't you try getting into real estate? You're a really good talker, energetic. And I was like, all right, let me give it a shot. a couple of my buddies said, oh, no. There's 2 million realtors out there, this and that. It's flooded with realtors. You don't know anybody. You're not going to make any connections that you don't know anybody in Florida. You have no network, no sphere of influence. How on earth are you going to make it, right now? So I was like, oh, maybe he's right. So I got my real estate license despite of that. And I was like, I'm going to prove this guy wrong. And this guy was like a veteran, 10 years, making a couple $100,000 a year. And I wanted to prove him wrong. So I ended up getting my license right around this. It was like maybe November of 2019, actually. That's when it was. So I got my license and I was like, all right, he's probably correct, because I'm looking around and I'm like, all right, it's kind of tough to get like listings right now because I've never done anything before. Kind of tough to work with buyers because I've never sold a house before. So I'm like, what am I supposed to do, right? I can go and shadow all of these big time agents, but they didn't want really anything to do with me because I'm a brand new agent and they're busy. So I was like, all right, let me try something completely different. I ended up talking to a successful agent's girlfriend, and I'll never forget this. She told me, she's like, why don't you try renters? Because I was explaining all of this to her. And I'm like, what do I do? And she's like, just try renters. She's like, work with rentals. And I'm like, rentals? I'm like, nobody's even mentioned that before. I'm like, I didn't even think that was an option, right? It was just buyers, sellers. That's it, right? No, there's a third option. There's an untapped market right now on planet Earth, everywhere. It's not just in South Florida or the United States. It's literally everywhere. No agents work with rentals because that's not even a thing that like brokers, team leaders, mentors even talk about. They talk about getting the big commissions, the 10 grands, the 15, 20 grand checks, and they don't talk about these little deals. But guess what? You can do a lot of them very quickly with not that much effort per deal, and you can make a good amount of money. So I'll even give you a little backstory on my average commission. I'm making around $2,000 per deal, me personally, right? I charge a transaction fee, which I can talk about in a little bit. It equals about $2,000 per deal. And my best month, I think it was around 30 deals or so. So you do the math on that, right? That's about $60,000 just from rentals alone. My best month in real estate so far in my past, 3.5, 4 years, I did 137. I did $137,000 in net commission. Okay. I'm an icon agent, obviously, with the XP. So I get to basically keep all of that minus some like tiny little fees, which I don't even see. So basically, for the most part, you can do other things. You don't have to just work with buyers and sellers. And if you want to work with buyers and sellers, great, fantastic. It's tough really starting off that way if you don't have a network or a sphere built up. Because listen, if you have a network and sphere, it's a lot easier because then these people know you, they trust you, you know what I mean? But if you're trying to do it with strangers that never met you before, and they say, how many deals have you done? And you're like, I've done 0 deals. Like, listen, a purchase of a house is one of the most important decisions any human being is going to make. It's a big decision, right? You're buying a $500,000, whatever, wherever you are. That's the biggest purchase you're going to make. So you really have to have a lot of faith and trust in the person that's going to be selling your home or helping you buy a home. I didn't have that trust, that credibility built up. So I said, you know what? Let me try rentals. And it just worked. Like right out of the gate, I'll tell you this. All right. So my first year, I wasn't really doing too much. Like I was probably working about 5-6 hours a day, taking off the weekends, turning my phone off at 5 o'clock at night. Cause I was treating it like a 9 to 5. Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. That's what I was treating it like my very first year of real estate. I still managed to do about, 60 deals. Did about 60 deals, 5 of those being house sales, which I got from my renters because I do no marketing whatsoever for purchases. And then the other 40 or 50, 40, 60 deals, whatever it is, like 55 deals, I did rentals, right? And my average commission was a lot lower in my first year. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was kind of creating this system from scratch because I didn't have anybody like me to teach it to me. Literally, there was nobody teaching rentals whatsoever. I would go into YouTube, go into Google, and nothing came up. There was nobody that had a course, a program, a coaching, literally nothing. So I was like, all right, shit, like I probably got to do this myself, right? So I did. I literally created it from scratch. And first year did about 80. It equated to about 80,000 in commission my first year, which is pretty decent for like, I basically was kind of working part-time, pretty decent, right? And then I was like, you know what? I'm kind of onto something here. Like this is working really freaking well. I'm like, what happens if I actually put in more effort? Well, I'll tell you what happens. Second year I did this, I basically made $250,000. That's after being in the business 1 year. Okay. That first month in January of, 2020, whatever it was, or 2021. And after my first year, I think I made like 20 grand. Working with rentals. And I was like, what the hell? Like, all right, like maybe I'll put even more effort into it. And then second month, did even better. So I'm like, all right, what if I now, this is my third year coming in, right? Because I think I did 180 deals in my second year, 250K commission, third year. So after 2 years in the business, I was like, okay, now what if I start busting my ass working about 16 hours a day? What if I start working when I'm awake, I'm working, when I'm sleeping, right? What if I try that? I'll get back to all of my leads. I'm not going to stop lead gen whatsoever. And let's see what happens, right? So it worked. I literally doubled my business again, right? I think I tripled it after my first year. And then after my second year, I doubled it to $500,000. It was 510 grand exactly that I made in my third year of real estate. And that's commission collected to me, right? Because I'm an icon agent. So that's I got the tax on that, right? So that's not like, people say, oh, I made $1 million, but what was your expenses? You know what I mean? No. My expenses were so minimal in real estate, right? So yeah, the majority of that, I literally, kept all of it. Because guys, for real estate, we don't really have much overhead, especially if you're a solo agent. You don't have like a whole office or like, team built up or anything like that. Your overhead is it's basically just the gas in your car, right? You could literally work from your phone and your laptop, and you could do it out of your house. You can do it, out of your car, like literally. You don't need any kind of crazy overhead. So the profit margins are so spectacular in real estate. So I learned that, and I'm like, all right, now what am I going to do my fourth year, right? Because first 3 years went really, really well. Almost made, I think it was it 5? I almost made about $1 million in my first 3 years. Okay. And then now we're getting into this year. This is 2023. I was like, all right, I can grind again. I can bust my butt again. Because guys, I was working 16 hours a day nonstop to make $500,000 after 2 years in the business. So I'm not trying to, come on here and say this is a get rich quick scheme, because it's not. It truly is not. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of time, motivation, dedication. I loved what I was doing. I had families literally crying to me after getting them into a property because no agent would work with them. Like, I don't want to work with a rental deal. What am I going to make $2,000 commission? They're scoffing at that. And I'm like, scoffing at that? You're putting in 2 to 4 hours of work. How else are you going to make, what is that, like $500 an hour? I'm like, and if it's only taking 2 hours, that's $1,000 an hour. I'm like, how are you going to make $1,000 an hour? Show me a job where you can start for 1 or 2 years and start making $1,000 an hour. Doesn't really exist, right? That's tough. Okay. So I did it. It really worked, but I didn't want to do it again, right? I didn't want to, like, this year, after my third year, I didn't really want to like put in the 16 hours a day grinding. I didn't want to try to do 350 deals, and make $1 million doing rentals. I didn't really want to do that. And I probably could have, alone. So what did I do? I got creative. Okay. And I was like, that's how I did so well. I was thinking outside the box. I was getting creative. I was solving problems. I was closing deals left and right. I was helping families out. So this year I said, you know what? I want to hire some agents, bring them in under me for EXP, and have them help me with all of my rental deals. So that's what I did in February of this year. I started training agents and brought them in under me. And now they're doing the stuff that I was doing last year, but now they're doing it for me and with me, right? So now I have different responsibilities. I'm growing like crazy right now. I just brought on another agent yesterday. I'm going to bring on another one next week. I'm going to start a team in New York. I'm expanding now. So my whole point, and first of all, too, then I started the YouTube channel. Then I started the Instagram. I've only been on YouTube and Instagram for 5-6 months now, something like that. Literally just started it this year. And my whole point about telling you guys this is, yes, you can grind for a few years and, make yourself an authority figure. Give yourself the credibility to then be able to hire or bring on agents or people under you that are going to help you with your work, or, kind of do your work, kind of for you, right? Because that's the whole goal. And everybody wins. They're making a lot of money. I think my agents right now are making, I think one of my agents is going to make $250,000 literally in their first year. They're going to make $250,000 in year one. I wish I didn't do, I didn't even do that because I had nobody to teach me. So it's literally possible to bring on people to help you out once you get that credibility, though. I think somebody's mic's on. If you could turn that, mute that mic really quick. But whoever that is, Stuart, I don't know if you can mute that person's mic. But yeah, it's the credibility, right? You gotta build that credibility first. This way, it's going to inspire the agents under you to want to work for you, right? Let's say you did, $50,000. You're making $50,000 a year, $80,000 a year, closing a couple deals here or there. How are you going to inspire agents, right? You have to show them that it's possible. You have to show them that you did the hard work too, so then you can go and teach them how to do it as well. So I think that's the whole like beauty of this, especially as real estate agents. You don't have to do this forever alone. I've met a ton of agents that have been doing this, 20 years, 30 years. And guess what? They all have teams. It took them a little bit longer to get the whole team thing built up. So I'm an anomaly, like doing it this quick. It's very, very rare, but I literally created the blueprint on exactly how to do this. So for the most part, grind for the first few years. It's like an outline or rundown of like the blueprint that I'm kind of like creating here. Is you grind really hard for the first few years, right? Get that credibility built up. And yeah, it's going to be tough and you're going to have to really sacrifice other things. But then eventually, once you've done enough, and in my mind, you got to make about, I would say at least minimum $250,000, right? In a year, $250,000 profit. Once you've done that, then you're like, all right, I could have done that after my first year. I was like, I need a little bit more experience. So I waited till my $500,000 mark. But then guess what? I literally turn down agents left and right. I have agents come up to me all the time. I want to work for you. I want to work under you. And I say, nah, I can't do it right now, right? Because my time is very precious. I can only bring on certain people because I'm working with them directly right now. So basically, you need to build up that name for yourself, that brand for yourself, which is what I'm doing on Instagram and YouTube now to attract a bigger audience, right? Not just locally, but in the meantime, locally, you got to do a lot of volume. Then you can start bringing on other agents to help you out because that's the ultimate goal. You don't want to be slaving away. Trust me, guys. You do not want to be slaving away like I was doing last year, in 2022. First of all, that was in like the peak of the pandemic right there. It was 22 when our market peaked. It was like June of 22. I'll never forget that. That's when the market peaked here in America. So like it got tough. Some of these listings were getting 50 offers. So I had to compete with that. I had to win out on like a 1 out of 50 chance to win a rental bid, if I got a lease or a sale or a list. And I had to compete with that kind of stuff, right? So I did it though, because I got creative. But you can actually do other things as well if you get good at real estate, whatever it is, right? You don't have to do rentals as your niche. You could pick, there's a lot of other things you can actually do aside from rentals. Like, let's say you don't like doing rentals. I trained an agent and, she made a bunch of money in her first month or two, but she's like, you know what, Andy, I don't really like doing rentals that much. I think I would like to do, this or that, open houses, blah, blah, blah. So then I use the same philosophies to train her on open houses. It's not the niche that you choose. Now, I will say this, rentals are by far the best niche to choose right now. If you're optimizing right now, time spent on, dollar producing activities in real estate right now, rentals are number one. Don't get me wrong. There is no second right now because nobody wants to buy, nobody wants to sell. The market's all screwed up, right? We got crazy high interest rates. Well, not yet. They're going to be higher. I can talk about that later. We got very low inventory and we got very high prices, right? So what does that mean? It means nobody wants to buy right now. Nobody wants to sell. They're only buying or selling because they need to, because they must, which is creating a very tough market for real estate agents. So that's why I know rentals are by far the best option right now in this particular market, but that can change, obviously. But here's the thing, rentals are always going to be good no matter what. I literally just lived through, now like Stuart said, I don't have 30 years of experience. I haven't seen these cyclical markets. I've only seen from 2000, end of 19, we'll say beginning of 2020. I've seen that, which we basically got smashed right into the pandemic. What, in February? I was in there for like a month or two before we just, the whole country shut down. So I had to adapt. I did this literally during a global pandemic, by the way. So, not only did I do this fast, I literally did it during one of the worst times in like recorded human history, right? So it just goes to show you that no matter what's happening, it doesn't matter. There's no excuses. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, there's a pandemic. I can't do this. I can't do that. No. None of that stuff, right? You got to take accountability. If things are not happening for you, it's because of you and you alone. That's it. It's not because of anybody else, not because of outside circumstances. It's because you're doing something wrong and you need to change it. You need to fix it, right?
You worked hard. You really, really worked hard. You put in those hours, you put it to the grindstone, 16 hours a day, ladies and gentlemen. If you start putting in 16 hours a day, just imagine how would it affect and change your particular business. But now you can't do 16 hours consistently for a long period of time. You're going to physically burn out. And that's exactly, Andy, you mentioned, starting that particular team, getting yourself in that growth. And now you're going to start seeing that exponential growth. And as a coach, that's exactly where I work with a lot of my agents, is getting through those first 3 years. And you hit the nail on the head. This is an entrepreneurial business. And if you look at any particular business, it takes you roughly 3 years to get to that particular point where you've actually got that foundation of absolute growth. So a question I want to follow on with this is, now that you've actually got into the team status, you're getting into that point where people are now starting to recognize you and saying, hey, Andy, I want to work with you. How has it changed your life? If you start
Oh.
comparing to what you did before real estate to what you've been doing during the pandemic, how's it changed your life now?
I like this question. I like this question a lot. So, all right, I'll tell you this, guys. So I'm going to be brutally honest, right? My first 3 years, were fun, right? It was fun. It was good. I liked making the money. The money was rolling in. I was, last year I was cashing $50,000 months. Every single month I was bringing in like 50K, basically, right? So that was fun. That was a lot of fun, and I was helping a lot of people. But I gotta say, this year, especially in the last, like, I would say 4 or 5 months, because I trained my agents in the beginning of the year. I started my YouTube channel. I started Instagram. Like I had to learn all that stuff, and I had to teach other, agents to help me out. But now that I'm in like the swing of it, I've learned YouTube. Obviously, I gotta see. Here's the one thing too. Like I don't know it all, right? I'm always gonna be able to learn something new, which I love. That fuels me. You know what I mean? So when I say like I learned something, it doesn't mean there's nothing more for me to learn. Because trust me, I learn every single solitary day. But I've learned enough to be like, all right, this is working. You know what I mean? Like my agents, working with my agents, working with YouTube, working with social media. So now I'm really enjoying it. It's become so fun. I'm so happy. I've never been happier in my life than at this point in my life right now. I've never been happier by far. I mean, I have an amazing partner right now to share this all with. I think that's very important because, at the end of the day, money comes and goes, and I'm sure you've heard this before. Money is like meaningless. You know what I mean? It's not the money. It's not the end goal. It's the journey. It's the journey that kind of like fuels you. And if you think that, I want to make $1 million. And then once you hit that $1 million, you're like, all right, now I'm going to be happy. Doesn't work that way. It's not that way whatsoever. It's the journey that takes you there. That's the fun part. You know what I mean? Then when you hit that million or whatever your goal is, you're like, all right, what's next? Cause you want something more. But you have to love what you're doing. And if you love what you're doing, you're never going to have work a day in your life. I'm sure you've heard that saying a million times. And I'm learning that is super true. Cause like I said before, my first 3 years, I liked it. Don't get me wrong. I liked it. It was fun. I had a good time. But I didn't like now, like today, like I love creating YouTube content. I love making videos, right? I love training and teaching other agents. Like that's like really enjoyable to me, more so than what I was doing before. So like in my mind, there's like levels to things. Like I'm a very analytical and logical person. I think in like percentages and numbers, right? So like if I'm at maybe real estate for the past 3 years, I was at like a 90%, like happiness, enjoyment level of doing it, right? Well, now I'm literally at like 100% or like 99%. I am so happy and I'm so in love with what I'm doing right now. So I can wake up every single morning with a massive smile on my face. I jump right out of bed because I want to get up and get to work. And the word work, I don't even like saying work because it's just my lifestyle now. It's not even like work. It's just my life. I don't treat it as like work. I don't say, oh, I got to go to work today. I have a job today. Like it's just a word I use to say what I'm doing, but it's my life. That's what I'm living. You know what I mean? So I don't like ever turn off. I don't have a time where I'm like, all right, it's time to stop working for today. It doesn't exist in my mind, doesn't exist in my life. It's just nonstop. It's a lifestyle that you're living. I think that's what separates the millionaires, billionaires, the really successful people. I think that's what separates them from the people who have not achieved that, is they've grasped that fact. Oh, yeah, if you want to make it to the top, okay, you really have to change your whole mentality and mindset behind this. It's truly a different kind of way of thinking, right? You can't, first of all, you cannot let problems really get you down, right? Because listen, guys, I'm talking about all my wins and my successes right now, but do you know how many failures I've had? I've had so many failures. I can't even count them. Way more failures than successes. Because a lot of times you're going to have problems in every single thing you're going to do. Like, I don't care if you're in real estate or not. I mean, everybody's in real estate here. But whatever deals you're working on, you're going to have issues and problems. So you cannot let those discourage you. I'll tell you a story really quick. So just talking about some failures I've had, I could lose a deal. Maybe I had a purchase that was like a $10,000 commission. And then maybe a day before, I think it was a day before, I lost the commission. I lost a deal. Literally, it was just like completely got just shut down, and we had to return the earnest money escrow back to the seller. And I was like, oh my God, I just lost a $10,000 commission. I didn't really it wasn't even, I didn't need the money, but imagine if you did need the money, you know what I mean? Then that's why I like rentals so much, by the way, too. A little tangent here. Rentals, you can lose a deal and it doesn't matter. But if you lose a $10,000 commission and that's you're counting on that for the month, ooh, what are you going to do then? You know what I mean? But if you lose a $2,000, $1,500 rental deal, no big deal. You got 10 more in the pipeline, right? Doesn't really matter at that point. So that's why I really love rentals too. But yeah, I would lose these deals and I would get upset for days, literally days. I'll be like, oh my God, I lost this $10,000 commission. Oh my God, what do I do? I'm upset. I'm in a bad mood. I'm miserable for days. This was last year. And then I finally realized, I'm like, wait a minute, I can't stop these problems from happening, right? It's out of my control. I can do the best job possible. I can get everything right, but we're working with other people. We're working with tenants. We're working with sometimes buyer's agents, seller's agents, whoever we're working with, right? Landlords, sellers, we're working with a lot of other people. So sometimes, title companies, loan companies, we're working with so many people, it's out of your control. So sometimes there will be problems, even if you did everything perfect. So I literally changed my mindset, my mentality around that. Now, when I have a problem, I say, yes, please give me another. Okay. And let me explain that really quick. And this is a mindset change. So if you have a problem, right, because they're unavoidable, you're going to have a lot of problems and issues. So instead of being upset and depressed and sad about them now, I embrace them. I love having a problem or an issue now, because now I get to prove myself to myself. Okay. And that's what it's all about, right? I get to show, why I'm successful, why I'm doing better than the average person. And I get to prove it time and time again. Right. And that makes me feel happy. I feel fulfilled doing that. I just solved a problem. When you solve a problem, imagine going back into math school. I don't know if you like math or whatever it is, but if you're doing a trigonometry equation and then you finally get to the end of the answer, you're happy. You're like, oh, I finally did it. I just made this work, right? It's the exact same thing in real estate or any business, really, honestly. This could be applied to anything, but we're talking about real estate. If you have a problem and you solve that problem, you feel fulfilled and happy, okay? So I literally changed my mindset around that. And now every time I have a problem, all right, I get to solve this problem and then move on to the next problem. And then it equates to wins and successes, right? When you solve a problem, you're going to get a win eventually, right? You might have to solve multiple problems, but eventually you're going to get to that closing table, or that final walkthrough to get that rental commission check, and you're going to get it. And that's going to be a win because you've solved all of those problems. So really, in my mind, real estate in general is just high level problem solving. You're just solving problems for people. People want a house to live in, either rent or buy or sell, whatever it is. And you're just solving that problem for them. And you have to do contracts. You got to do showings, you got to offers, you got to do all that stuff in between. But those are all problems that you just need to solve for them. And once you solve those problems, guess what's waiting at the end of that tunnel, right? It's the commission check. It's that nice fat check that you're going to get. And, for some people, rental is not a fat check. For me, it is, right? Like I said before, to make a $2,000, $1,500 check for a couple hours of work, that's pretty good to me. And I still do them, listen, I don't do many deals anymore. I try to do the bigger deals now. I'll give you an example. And guys, this is awesome too. So you're going to love this. So my biggest deal ever came from a renter. And like I said before, I don't do any marketing, any advertising for any buys or sells whatsoever. I've only done about 30. I think I've done about 30 purchases in my career. The other, 700 of them or 670 of them, those were all rental deals. But they're all coming from my renters. Either they're going to move into a property and rent that property out for a year, 2 years, whatever it is, and then call me up afterwards, because obviously I'm staying in touch with them, which I can talk about later, which is very important, my CRM and database. And then they're going to actually use me to buy a house, because first of all, I was the only agent that would help them out. They might have called 10 agents and each agent hung up the phone on them. I don't do rentals. I picked up, I got them into a place. So now they're loyal to me. They're going to use me to buy their house, and they're going to refer all their friends and family to me, right? I probably don't even need to generate leads anymore. I wouldn't be scaling anymore. I might just stay at the 500,000 mark, which I don't like. So that's why I keep generating leads, because you're never supposed to stop generating leads if you want to scale. That's why I'm probably going to make close to $1 million this year. I got to see, I'm working on a couple big deals, but I might hit $750 a mil this year, which is doubling what I did last year. And that's because I never stop lead generation. I do not stop. Every single day, I lead gen every freaking day. I never stop that, right? So these renters are going to turn into buyers, either after you get them into a rental property, or they can actually start buying during the rental process. And I know that might be confusing. What I mean by that is you can convince them to buy a house instead of rent. I've turned a lot of these renters because they're like, oh, because, sometimes I got to see proof of funds, proof of income and stuff like that to get them into a rental. And I'm like, wait a minute, you got 50 grand just laying around right now? I'm like, do you know you can buy a house? And they're like, no, I didn't know that. I thought you needed 20% down and this and that. And I'm like, no, you need 3.5% down. That's it. And yes, you get the PMI insurance and there's some, downfalls about that, but they didn't even know that was a case. So I turned a lot of these renters midway through into buyers, and then they buy a house with me, right? So, but it doesn't even matter, right? You can get the renters, you can get the buyers, you can do a combination of both. It literally doesn't matter. You can make the oodles of money just doing renters, and then you can also get the buyers in them as well. But the real cash, and when I say real cash, I'm talking the multi-millions per year, the $2, $3, $4 million per year. That comes after your renters turn into buyers in 3 years or so, 2, 3 years, once the market switches. Because right now, guys, we're in a very changing market. I call it a tough market right now because it's not a buyer's market, not a seller's market, but eventually it's going to turn into a buyer's market. So if you're working with the renters right now, guess what? Once it switches over to a buyer's market, you're going to be flooded with buyers. And that's what I'm positioning myself now to do. My best years are still ahead of me. I have not even come close to my best years yet in real estate. You know what I mean? Because my renters now, I have a list of almost 700 renters, and they're going to buy from me. I'm going to convince each and every one of them that can afford it to buy a house with me once this market crashes. And I don't want to say it's going to crash. I do want to just talk about this for a brief moment because I've been doing a lot of research, and I'm going to give everybody a little inside tip here. What's going to happen in the market? What I feel like I have a crystal ball right now. We're going to hit a 1981 market again. Okay. We're not going to have a 2008 crash. We're going to have a 1981 situation. What happened in 1981 was the interest rates skyrocketed to like 17% mortgage rates, right? So I think that's what we're going to have happen again, just because we have the high interest rates right now at 8%. We have the low inventory right now, and we have the high prices. It's an unsustainable housing market economy right now. It's not sustainable. People can't, this cannot go on. So there's only one thing they can do. They can raise the federal funds rate, which is going to raise the mortgage rate. In turn, obviously, it's going to raise the mortgage rates. And when that happens, everybody's going to stop buying, which is then going to replenish the inventory and drop the prices down. That's literally the only way they can reverse what they did. At a 2.7% interest rate, it just made it too affordable and too easy for people to buy homes. That's why we have no inventory now, and that's why the prices got all jacked up. So they're going to have to do that. And my prediction right now, this is a good inside prediction. You guys should write this down. I've been studying the last 30 years, 40 years of the economy and the housing market. And every single election year, 2000, it's for America, obviously. I think I don't know what's going to happen worldwide, but for America anyways, every election year, the interest rates drop about 3 to 6 months, before the election hits. They want to get the person in power, the president in power. They want to get them reelected again. So they put pressure on the Fed to lower the federal funds rate. This way, the mortgage rates will start to drop, which will create, good favor for the voters to reelect them again. That's why they do it. And I think they're going to do it again. I mean, if history is going to repeat itself, they're probably going to do it again, right? So around maybe May, June, July of 2024, they're probably going to start lowering the interest rates again, which is going to create more people to buy homes. It's going to bring the buyers back out again, which is going to increase the purchase price of these homes, okay? But they're only going to do this for a short amount of time. Once the new president gets elected, that's going to screw the economy up even worse than it is now, by the way. And they know that, but they're going to do it anyways, I think. And then what they're going to do is now we're going to hit the 1981 scenario where they're going to have no choice but to increase these mortgage rates to a crazy high level. I don't know if we're going to hit 17% again, but we might get up there to 12%, 10%, 14%, which is then going to cause all the home prices prices to go down and the inventory to go up. They're going to have to do that for about 1 to 3 years, depending on how fast it rebounds. I don't really know timeframes on there. I just know it's going to happen. So guess what? It's going to become a buyer's market. So and a lot of people won't want to buy because the interest rates are so high. So then they're going to start buying again once they drop the interest rates again. But if you can convince all of your renters or whoever you're working with that, hey guys, now is actually a really good time to buy because the prices are so outrageously low compared to what they were in June of 2022 at the peak. If you can convince them that and then just refinance a little bit later once the mortgage rates drop, they're going to get the best of both worlds. Yes, they're going to have to eat the interest rate, the high interest rates for a year, 2 years, however long it takes for them to drop again, but who cares? Doesn't matter. It's a 30-year fixed mortgage, or whatever they're gonna do for their mortgage. They're gonna win in the long run, okay? And it's your guys' job as real estate agents to convince them to do this, especially if you're working with the renters right now. It's what they've been waiting for. They've been literally waiting for this opportunity. So yeah, guys, when I say my best years in real estate are still ahead of me, that's what I'm referring to, right? Because now I'm gonna convince all of my 700 renters to do exactly what I just told you. And guess what? These commissions, it's a lot more, right? I might be making 10, 15 grand on average for commission compared to my 2,000, but also I'm still going to work with the renters. I'm doing both. I'm not going to stop that. I got a good thing going there. So what do? I have my renters agents, I got my buyers agents. And then guess what, right? Then I can get listing agents because eventually all of my buyers, they're going to sell. They're going to want to sell. Eventually, what's I think an average is like 7 years people stay in their home for. So in 7 years on average, all of these buyers, maybe I do 100, 200, purchases per year. Now, all of these buyers, these 200 buyers I do per year, in 7 years, they're going to sell with me. So I just keep in contact with them for these 7 years. I mean, who knows? They might sell in between, but then I'm going to have another massive spike again once all my buyers turn into sellers. So this whole plan that I have, it's not just a short, fast, make $500,000 here on rentals this year, and then, make a little bit of money on buyers in 2 or 3 years. Well, guess what? It's like a 10-year plan as well, because then it's going to explode again once my buyers turn into sellers. So this is a whole career plan right here that I've created and literally developed from the ground up. So
oh, fantastic, Andy. No, great. And you know what? There's so much insight that you've given in there, and it's so relevant when we start putting it into perspective with South Africa. We're going into elections next year, and there's already talks that in 2024, we're going to see our interest rates starting to come down. Also, going through your journey of hard work, moving it to a team, taking it into the actual future, which is your give back, giving and helping agents, is absolutely amazing. Andy, I want to cut it on there and say thank you again so much. It's been a total honor and a privilege for having you on this particular call. And I really do look forward to having another session with you.
Thank you so much, for joining today and, supporting Stuart and supporting us. EXP is a fast growing company. I mean, I think it's the best brokerage on planet Earth by far. I have been recruited by every single brokerage imaginable, and every single day I get like 10, 20 emails, and I'm never going to leave. I love this brokerage so much. So guys, again, thank you so much for having me. And that's it. That's all I got for you.
Fantastic. The future of your real estate starts right now. Have it a great week ahead. I look forward to chatting to you again. Cheers for now.